How do you mold your children? I recently landed at the Mumbai International Airport and my co-traveler pointed out to me some very beautiful braided umbrella trees. If you haven't seen them before, you must look out for them. And looking at them, he remarked on how ordered they were, how symmetrical, how neat they were, and just how pleasing to the eye they were. And that really got me thinking. Beauty indeed does lie in the eye of the beholder. And as you may have guessed, I'm going to draw an analogy with these plants to children. Hello, I'm Sandhya and welcome to Dynamic Living. So there are two ways of looking at anything, right? What my friend saw was perfection. What he saw was beauty. What he saw was orderliness. What I saw, after thinking about it a little bit, because I too found it quite attractive to start with, was a tree that needed a lot of maintenance. If the gardener took his eyes off them for even a few days, they would flounder. Here's a tree that's been molded and pushed and trimmed and truncated, pun intended, and made to come out as something that is very, very appropriate in a particular circumstance. But what happens if this tree is abandoned or is suddenly left to its own devices? Such a tree is going to either wither from lack of water or lack of sunshine because it knows no way to reach for these things on its own. Or it may simply burst out of its pot because its roots are seeking desperately and grow as they must do. Or the tree is going to aim to shoot up and suddenly find that it has never developed a bark of its own, a strength of its own, and it will soon simply just bend over and break. Okay, I think I've stretched this analogy long enough. So let's go back. Enough with the trees. The bottom line is, this analogy doesn't refer only to children, but to many things in life. Anything that we seek to control, that we seek to mold, that we seek to exercise our influence over. We all do it in one way or the other. It could be as simple as, oh, I like my dessert exactly this way, or nobody should ever touch my books. I like it ordered just so. We all seem to adore the idea of perfection, the idea of order, the idea of being in control, at least of some things in our lives. Now let's take a look at the why of it. And for this, I'll go back to parenting as an example. I know I keep switching back and forth, but stick with me and we'll get there in the end. As parents, why do we do what we do? We've all heard about the perils of helicopter parenting and we've had an entire generation of over-parented kids, and we've seen what the effect of them has been in terms of their long-term happiness, satisfaction, ability to cope with flux, with depression, with uncertainties. And yet, why do we keep doing this? Primarily, we're not very much thinking creatures. We mostly work from an area of our brain, which is our neolimbic brain. It's an old brain, and this is where we learn our socialization. And it's our unthinking autopilot behavior. Everybody else is doing it, so I gotta do it. If I don't do it, my child will miss out. Or my socialization has taught me that this is how children ought to be raised. The second case is when we genuinely believe that this is our role as parents, that we must mold our children. They are putty in our hands, and it is for us to knead, to fashion, to smooth out the edges until we create this beautiful perfection that we can present to the world, and we will get the accolades for that. I know this sounds a little mean, but this is eventually what it does come down to. We do want that prized piece of pottery that's going to win the prize because it's perfect, because it's shining, because it's our creation. It is a reflection of us. The third scenario is really, at some levels, the most universal. Each of us feels a lack in our lives. Our lives are messy, they're out of control, things don't seem to be going the way they ought to, things are just too much work, and we don't want to deal with all of that. And here comes a child, and it's a chance for us to make good on all of our mistakes, to eliminate all the mess that's in our life, and to start with a clean slate. And this is so familiar to us. It is indeed a reflection of who we truly are. This is a chance for us to create perfection again. Now, for all these, the answers are pretty universal and they're pretty much the same. Let's start by answering the basic questions. What is our role as parents? In a sentence, It is to make ourselves redundant. In some philosophies, there's a thinking that children choose the families that they are born into. And it is our obligation, it is our privilege for us to nurture them, for us to draw out, educate, that is to draw out the best in them such that they flourish, such that they lived their most authentic lives and reach their true potential, not the potential that we define for them. Again, we know all of this theoretically, but why is it so hard for us to put into effect? And what about the perfection trap? Don't we want what's best for our child? To give him all the things that we never had, for us to help him secure a safe future? Whatever are we going to brag to our friends about if our child goes and does something that's totally socially unacceptable for us? Easy. We'll come to all of this in just a bit. The bottom line is, once we switch from our neolimbic brain to our conscious brain, to our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, two things will happen. Well, actually, many things happen, but in this instance, two things primarily. One, we are no longer defined or restricted by our socialization, our past, what others do, and we can be truly individualistic thinkers. That way, we will be able to make conscious decisions about what we believe is best for our child based on our understanding of truly who the child is, and really see him or her for what he or she is, not what we would like to see reflected of ourselves in them. And with this, we will allow life to take its course, even our child's, and allow it for it to be its wonderful, messy, imperfect self. Because, two, guess what? The conscious mind will also have realized by then that perfection lies deep within us. Each of us is a perfect diamond at our core. And we don't see this because we're swathed in so many different layers obscuring that perfect diamond. And none of these layers can be perfect. These are our emotions, these are our thoughts, this is our body, these are our feelings, our discretion. Life is imperfect, but since we have this deep desire to find that perfection, to reunite with that feeling of perfect bliss, of everything being just right, we seek to do that by controlling that which is easiest around us and that which feels the most familiar. Take, for example, our homes, our workplaces, our staff, and yes, our children as well. What we could do instead is pause, reflect. And once we develop compassionate consciousness, not towards anybody else in the world, but towards ourselves, we'll realize that all we need to do is chip away at all the layers of dust and sediment that have built around us and reveal within us the diamond that we are. And in all this, you know what? The kids are going to be all right. Thank you for watching.